Okay, continuing on with our SOHCAHTOA, let's make up some interesting questions. So let's first just look at triangles, and I'll start using word problems later. So let's say we have an angle here that is, say, 40 degrees, and this is 10. And you're asked to find this and this. And I know you guys probably know your Pythagorean theorem, right? Which basically says this square plus that square is always going to equal to that square, meaning one leg square plus the other leg square is always going to equal to the hypotenuse squared. I know you like to remember that as a squared plus b squared equals c squared, but you know, what if they named it differently and call that c? You'd be messed up, right? So again, remember, triangles have two legs. One leg squared plus the other leg squared is equal to the hypotenuse squared. Okay, that's the way to remember it. All right, so, but we won't be using the Pythagorean theorem here because we got some new stuff. But if you went back and used the Pythagorean theorem to check, it'll always come out the same. In fact, that might be a great idea to do while you do work. Okay, so here we go. We see that, and here's how I want you to do this. Write your SOHCAHTOA, write down sine of theta equals opposite over hypotenuse, cosine of theta equals adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent of theta equals opposite over adjacent. Okay? And so when we're done with that, we look and we see, okay, what do we have? We see that the opposite is equal to 10, because remember, opposite, I mean, I could make this angle and then that would be the opposite. Opposite just depends on the angle. What is the angle? That's what decides who's the opposite and who's the adjacent. Okay, remember that. That's really important. Okay, the angle decides who's the opposite and who's the adjacent. Okay, and so, and I have theta, which is 40 degrees. And so, what am I looking for? Well, what do you want to find first? Let's find the hypotenuse first. Okay, if we're going to find the hypotenuse, O, theta, and H. That's got to be this guy, because it can't be that guy, can't be that guy, right? So let's go ahead and use that. So write down sine of theta equals opposite over hypotenuse. Sine of 40 degrees equals 10 over hypotenuse. Now, there's two ways to do this. You could either solve for h first or plug in the numbers. I like to solve for h first. I'm going to multiply both sides by h. You guys did this recently, didn't you? And so I have h sine theta equals 10. So now I've got to find sine of theta. I mean, I'm going to find h, so I'm going to divide both sides by sine of theta. Or I put theta in here, I could have put 40 back in there, but anyway, it doesn't matter, you see the thing. And so that goes away, and so I have h of the hypotenuse is equal to 10 divided by the sine of 40 degrees. And that's a good time to start putting in the numbers. Okay, and so I pull out my handy calculator. And it's important to make sure that you're in degrees. So click on mode, I'm not on degrees, so come over here. That's what I'm looking at. Hit enter, so now I'm degrees. And then I do 10 divided by sine of 40. So that's 15.6 would be the hypotenuse. So the hypotenuse is 15.6, I rounded that. I'd say units. Okay, so that up here, I'll go ahead and put 15.6. Now, of course, you can use a Pythagorean. 15.6 squared minus 10 squared would equal to this guy's squared. But we're going to use SOHCAHTOA to continue working on this. I'm just going to work on this little part right here now. Okay. So I'm going to pretend I don't know this guy. Okay, just in case I made a mistake and I don't want that mistake to carry over. So I go back and I say, okay, my opposite equals 10, my angle equals 40 degrees, and now I'm looking for the adjacent. And so for that, obviously, I need to use cosine of theta equals adjacent over hypotenuse. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to use the hypotenuse. I'm sorry, I'm not going to do this. Scratch that. Write it again. Opposite equals 10. Theta equals 40 degrees. And I'm looking for the adjacent. And so I need to use the tangent, because the tangent is what connects the opposite and the adjacent together. Right up here. Right up there. Tangent is what connects them. So I'm going to write here tangent of theta equals 10 over adjacent. And so now to find the adjacent, I'm going to multiply both sides by adjacent. Again, all I'm doing here is solving for the variable. If you're more comfortable sticking it in first, the numbers, you can do that. All right, so I have a times tangent of theta equals 10. I'm looking for a, so I'm going to divide both sides by tangent of theta. By tangent of theta, and a is equal to 10 divided by tangent of theta. Now I can bring in my calculator, and I say, okay, 10 divided by tangent of, that was 40 degrees. And so that is 11.92 or 11.9 units. And so again, if we were talking about meters, you'd be putting in meters there. And if I'd say it was centimeters, you'd put centimeters there. If it was inches, you'd put inches, and so forth. And so there we go. You could see that that turns out to be 10, that's 11.9, and that's 15.6. Want to check it with the Pythagorean to see we got this right? Let's do that. So that means 10 squared plus 11.9 squared, enter, is 241.61. Well, what is 15 squared? 225, oh, 15.6, so hang on a second. That will make the difference. So we see that it's pretty close. And again, we did do some rounding, and that's why we're off by a couple of things here, but you can see that that's how you can pretty much check and see if you have the right answer. Well, I hope that helps, and we'll do another one in a bit.